Hey, everybody. I have an incredible guest with me here today. Kelly Lynn Adams, will you please introduce your beautiful self to the audience?
Yes, Francesca, thank you so much for having me. Honor to be on this podcast. So I'm Kelly Lynn Adams. I'm a master certified transformational coach. I help women shatter their own glass ceilings from the inside out. And that has to do with mindset work, embodiment work. I'm an international speaker. I have a podcast as well. I'm writing a book. So I'm doing all the things.
You are doing all the things. And this is so exciting because I get to follow you now in your journey. And I'm so appreciative that we've met prior to the end of the year because as we were discussing in the green room, we have some pretty cool tips we want to share, Kelly, don't we? With thinking about where we are at this point in our lives. And one tip, and I'm going to just throw it out there and then have you go. We were talking about resilience. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, so I love the topic of resilience, and especially at the end of the year or even at the end of the quarter, right? Whenever someone is listening to this podcast, sometimes we get a chance to reflect. And sometimes that reflection, and there's nothing good or bad, right? But sometimes things come up, right? Especially at the end of the year around birthday times, right? It's like, okay, am I at the place where I really thought I would be? Or did I get everything accomplished that I really wanted to? And so that can be from weight, that could be from, business or career goals, that could be from love, romantic partnerships, or family or children, like all of it, right? It is all relevant to any area of your life. So I want whoever's listening, right, to think about an area of your life where you thought you would have been somewhere by now. And
Mm.
so when we have these feelings, right? Sometimes shame, sometimes guilt, sometimes the inner critic comes up, like our little voices in our head being like, oh, why didn't you get this done? Or the judgment. So what I like to do is really, just acknowledge it, like it's coming
Mhm.
up. It's all parts of us are welcome in the coaching, therapy, psychotherapy world. There's a modality called IFS, internal family systems. And I'm not going to get into it, but it's all part, there's all different parts of us. And all parts are welcome. The jealousy,
Mm.
the guilt, the shame, all parts, the joy, the happiness, all parts. So we want to acknowledge what's coming up because if we don't and we suppress it, it's going to come up in different ways, right? I don't know if you are
Sure.
familiar with the saying, the universe, if you don't get the lesson will keep appearing until you
Being,
learn the lesson.
it will continue to repeat. Yes, I absolutely have heard that and have lived it,
Yes,
right? Full
yes,
transparency. Yeah.
yeah. So we want to be aware of it, right? And
Mm.
we want to look at it and we want to say, okay, here it is. Great. Thank you for showing up. And then the second piece of this is
Mm.
really getting honest, right? Of okay, where was the shortcomings? Where did I maybe not be committed or and just be real. And then the
Right.
third part is there's a chance to pivot, to reinvent yourself, to you can recommit at any time. So I always like to
Sure.
give people this example. Okay, say you have pizza or I don't know, a dessert or whatever throughout the day. Sometimes we can be like, all right, I had pizza and ice cream. I might as well for dinner, go out and eat something bad again, right? Or we can change that and say, hey, I'm going to have a salad for dinner. Now, it's like we can
Right.
do that, but and it's a choice. There's always chance to recommit, and that's the beauty of it. And
Yeah.
so that's a third piece. And I know these are like really quick tips, and there's so much more that goes into this. But what I guess I really want to relay to whoever's listening is just be gentle on yourself. Self compassion is really critical, especially when things like this come up because you're in a tender moment.
Yeah.
And we get to reinvent ourselves. We get to look at it, especially with
Right.
like Olympians, right? Or any kind of sport. Like, okay, we get better and better as we practice, as we recommit. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of that. So just to review, looking at resilience and reinvention as positive things. And just imagine you just brought up the Olympiads, the number of losses that they needed to get to the number of wins, right? it's always that resilience pattern of getting back up, which I love. It's a beautiful example, and that self-trust. So you've brought us through this awareness. Are there any tools other than, thinking of things and thinking positively, or any tools or tactics that can help us implement our self-trust a little better?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll share, back in my childhood, and we can go into wherever you want to go. You and I talked about this earlier, is, I
Yeah.
had a speech impediment. And it throughout the years, it was very difficult. It was like, oh, I was doing all the work and
Mm.
I felt like I wasn't getting ahead, enough. Like I always felt like I was behind. And so for me, some tactical tools that helped me was the recommitment, right? Was the okay, the practice, the finding fun and joy in the practice, even though it didn't feel like it.
Mm.
And it was recommitting and it was practicing and practicing and practicing. What I have currently learned, I would say in the past 3 years, because I was a very heady person, I was overthinking and underfeeling. Okay.
Yeah.
So uh, what what I have dived deeper into in my practice is more of the embodiment, more of like the nervous system regulation when you're feeling like anxiety, depression, any of those things, when you're feeling like triggered, for instance, it's getting into the body because the body keeps score. There's a book that is out there that's the
Yep.
title. And what I didn't realize is for years I was suppressing. I had a lot of trauma in my life, and I was suppressing the feelings. The speech impediment, the not good enoughness, the I can't take tests. I'm not a good test taker, and
Right.
so all these little traumas, or big or small traumas, live in the body. So I was suppressing. I was eating over it. I was shopping over it. I
Mm.
was doing all these other things around it to not face it off as I
Mm.
was getting older. So when we do that, uh, even if you're in a traffic jam, right, and someone cuts you off, your level of tolerance wherever you are, like if you're having a bad day, right, it's going to affect you even worse. But if you have built up suppression
Mhm.
and anger, some people blow up. Right.
Yep.
Like, why do some people get out of their cars and they blow up? And then other people are like, okay, whatever. Right. And
Right.
different people, different personalities, and we don't know what's going on in everyone's lives at that moment. And what I've learned is when we get into the body, so that could be either like, and these are mindfulness techniques, it could be literally like stopping right now
Mm.
and like putting your hands like on your heart, on your stomach, or like on your legs, like really like, okay, I am here. Like I am in the present moment. Because a lot of us are in our heads future tripping about next year or
Oh,
about the next thing we have to do or on our
that's
to
right.
right? So if we can just get present in the and so the mindful or just looking at okay, what's around me? What's the color red or what's the color yellow? Like really just tuning in and
Taking it in.
yeah, taking it in and then just monitoring your breath because
Mm.
people don't consciously breathe. I mean, we breathe, it's involuntary, right? But consciously, like, are you taking short breaths? Are your breaths long? Are they fast? Just noticing your breath and maybe taking 3 deep breaths in. And it's so important. So important. And then
So,
third thing is, and this is when you have a little bit of stress or uh, we carry our stress in our jaws. So if
mm.
your jaw is tightened up, or if you're clenching your jaw, and I used to have very bad TMJ. I used to grind my
Mm.
teeth at night. I don't anymore because of this embodiment work that I've been doing. So
Sure.
just be noticeable like of your jaw and like when you go to visit your family or when you're around someone who you may not be fond of in your friend circle, right? So just be and like if we can just loosen the jaw and just like relax the shoulders too, just to be like okay, like I am safe, I am safe, and you can even repeat that like I am safe, I am here, I have control, I can leave any situation if I want to. So those are like the tactical embodiment, I would say, tips.
So many brilliant things that you bring up, having fun in your day, realizing when, something doesn't feel right, embodying that. But I love what you just ended on about safety, because I literally 10 minutes ago, before we started recording, I was listening to another podcast that was talking about safety in our environment and why it's so important. And the psychologist who was speaking to it was saying, you know, because the interviewer asked, well, why is that important? Aren't you safe? And she's like, well, if you haven't been safe at some point in your life, it's going to keep showing up. Right. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because we can do a whole nother show on that. In fact, we probably will, hint, hint, um, on that topic. Um, but I think these are such beautiful gestures and things to think about. I want to just add on one more thing about having no shame about not meeting your goals this year. So as we position ourselves, Kelly, for, a fruitful and successful and joyful 2023, what should we be thinking about in that perspective?
Yeah. So the good thing here is we want to acknowledge what we have done. Okay. Because
Mm,
we can spiral really quickly and we're programmed. A lot of us are programmed of, from 0 to 7, we get this programming from either caretakers, environment, wherever. And so what I like to tell people is like, where's the good? Right. It's kind of like going into a retail store and people asking me, hey, do you need help with that? And automatically you're like, no, not yet. Right. It's like we have this
right,
shutdown. Same thing.
right,
As human beings, we're programmed to find the negative or to keep ourselves safe, right? The negative things, or like, oh, like what, I didn't get that done. Like, we tend to go there, and that's okay. Like, it's not our fault. We're not broken. It's not our fault. It's our programming. It's the way we were raised, or society. It's because when we're 2 years old, we're not
right.
thinking that. We're playing with
No,
dirt and sticks and whatever. Like, we're playing with
right.
cardboard boxes. Like, we're not thinking that. So what I like to tell people, and I have this jar right here. What I do is I have this. Do you see this jar with like all these little notes
Oh
and
yeah,
sticky notes? So I
so
call
cool.
this like a joy jar. So I literally put throughout the year when I've accomplished something, or I'm really proud of myself, handling a situation, or a real big success I had, or something. I literally put like a post-it note in, or write on down on a piece of paper, and I put it in a jar. This is not my idea. This, I think, is like floating around social media too.
I
So
love it.
I literally keep it. And whatever, when it happens, I do it, or when I, assess my quarter or month, however, someone plans, or if someone doesn't, like, this is like, okay, this is an awareness technique. So I do that. And sometimes throughout the year, I'll take it out when I'm at a low point, or I'm not, I'm just not feeling well about myself or my
Mhm.
accomplishments. And I definitely do it at the end of the year when I'm about to plan the next year, right? With the vision and everything. But I also bring this out every quarter because I plan every quarter. So that has been really critical for me, is just realizing, like, finding evidence. And it doesn't even matter this year. That's why I tell people, finding evidence. And this is part of like my morning ritual practice, finding evidence that you are, like, you're amazing, right? Finding evidence that you've accomplished anything. My coach actually talked to one of her, I guess, clients at the time. I think he was doing, I don't know, like some crazy number in sales, like 20 million in sales in his business.
Mm,
And she asked him, what is the one thing that got you to, that, and kept you going in the times when
right.
you weren't making sales? And he said, I would listen to all the testimonials that were either, I guess he had them on video or written or what. I would listen and read to all the testimonials every single morning. So what he was doing is the same
Wow.
thing, finding that evidence, even if you have to look at it or jog down, like when you were 5 years old, you had an amazing painting that you painted, right? Anything that we can find evidence to remind ourselves, because it's so noisy today, especially social media, everything that's going on in the world. Like, we need to get back to ourselves and be like, hey, like, I am self trust. Like, I can trust myself. I am doing it. I have done it. So that has just helped me. It's been a critical tip of like finding evidence of where it has and is working.
Wow. That is definitely one of the top tips of this episode, hands down. I love that. Certainly something I'm going to incorporate into my practice going forward. And I love the visual. I mean, it's just a glass jar. So, real quick, do you empty that in the beginning of the year, or do you just keep putting things in there?
Yeah, I do empty it. I start it
Okay.
fresh every year,
You
but I
started
actually,
fresh.
yeah, but I have a running list, and you could do it on your computer or a notebook. I always like to write because the subconscious picks it up a little bit deeper, gets into your
Sure.
subconscious when you're actually writing, but you could do it on the computer. but just I have a running list and like just so I can go back at any time just when these things occur, right, in my head. And so I keep all of the prior year's lists and I just like keep just adding it on to a master list.
It's so brilliant because, as you mentioned, we're going to have, like, let's not negate the fact that we're going to have lower days. So, how can we bring ourselves up? And you'll have an evidence jar. I think it's so brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just so much, I love that so very much. So, Kelly, in all of this amazing work that you get to do, when you get ready for your day, aside from these incredible morning rituals that you practice, is there something like a piece of clothing or an accessory that when you put it on, it makes you feel great and confident?
Yes. So I actually have two things.
Okay.
I love a really good blazer. Like a really like cute, fun blazer. I just feel like power mode, like
Yep.
boss mode. I do have a very soft side to me, but really I love the blazer because it just makes me feel powerful. And then what I really love is my grandmom gave me like this necklace, like this beaded necklace that she had when she was in her teens. So I love just putting that on. Like just it reminds me of like who I am and my sensuality and femininity, like all of that. So I love that.
Such a perfect answer. I love that you had two, right? Because I'm big fan of the blazer. I do feel powerful and confident when we put it on. I agree. Um, this has been so great, Kelly. So if someone wanted to, continue the conversation with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, they can just go right to my website. Everything is on
Okay.
there, kellylynadams.com, and even all my social media and everything. So
All right. Excellent. So what I'll do to make it easy for everyone is I'll put the links in the show notes. So it'll make it very easy. This has been such an incredible conversation. I love how we've positioned it at the right time of year. But as you mentioned, it's something that we could listen to every quarter to remind us of how great we are and how far we've come, and then plan the next 3 months. I so appreciate you, Kelly, and for the time that you took with us today. I hope you have an incredible day and rest of your year.
thank you, Francesca. Same to you.